On the edge of a small, forgotten town stood an old, crumbling mansion known only as the Whitmore House. It had been abandoned for as long as anyone could remember, with tales of its cursed past whispered in hushed voices at the local pub. No one dared to approach it, not after dark. One cold autumn evening, a curious journalist named Sam arrived in town, eager to investigate the house's dark history. He had heard the rumors, of course, but he wasn't one to shy away from a challenge. Armed with nothing but a flashlight and a notebook, he set off towards the mansion as the sun dipped below the horizon, turning the sky a blood-red hue. The mansion loomed before him, its silhouette jagged and unnatural against the twilight. The front door, long since rotted away, was left ajar, as if inviting him in. Sam hesitated for only a moment before stepping over the threshold. The air inside was thick with dust and decay, and the sound of his footsteps echoed ominously through the empty halls. As he explored, Sam felt an odd sensation, like eyes were watching him from the darkness. He shrugged it off, thinking it was just his imagination running wild. But then he heard it, a soft whisper, barely audible at first, then growing louder, more distinct. "Get out!" The voice seemed to come from the walls themselves, a cold, rasping sound that sent a shiver down Sam's spine. He froze, his flashlight flickering as the temperature in the room dropped sharply. The shadows around him seemed to shift, coalescing into strange, distorted shapes. Panicking, Sam turned to leave, but the front door was gone. In its place stood a wall of solid stone, as if it had never been there at all. He spun around, heart racing, only to find the hall stretching impossibly long, the walls closing in on him. The whispers grew louder, now accompanied by faint scratching sounds, like fingernails dragging across the floorboards. Then he saw her, a pale woman dressed in tattered black, her face twisted in agony, stood at the far end of the hall. Her eyes were hollow, empty sockets, and her mouth was frozen in a silent scream. She reached out toward him with skeletal hands, her fingers elongating unnaturally as she drew closer. Sam backed away, his breath coming in ragged gasps, but no matter how fast he ran, the mansion seemed to stretch on forever. The walls seemed to pulse, closing in around him like a living thing. Desperate, he turned to look behind him, and there, at the far end of the hall, was the woman again, now standing inches away, her icy breath brushing against his neck. "You shouldn't have come." The last thing Sam saw was her hands reaching for him, and then darkness. The next morning, the townsfolk found the Whitmore house as it always had been, silent and empty. But Sam was never seen again. His notebook was discovered on the front steps, its pages filled with frantic, scribbled notes. "She's here. She's still here. The house never lets you leave. The mansion remains, standing guard over its secrets, and the whispers still carry through the wind, beckoning the next curious soul."